Hello everyone, welcome to free crash course for competitive exams held by Virat Hindustan Sangam in association with Manifest IAS Bengaluru. This program is inspired by Dr. Subramanian Swamy and is convened by Ravi Shankar Sir, State Education Convener for VHS Karnataka branch. I am Dhanush Kumar, your chief mentor of the program. I have been mentoring competitive service aspirants for the past 5 years, and you can watch this entire program online on the YouTube channel of Virat Hindustan Sangam. And for further any queries, guidance, mentoring, help from our side regarding any competitive exams, you can get in touch with us on our Telegram channel, VHS Education Forum, VHS space Education space Forum. So we are done with 4 major topics. Fifth one is your environment, and the chief source for your environment is your Shankar IAS environment for UPSC as well as State Public Service Commission, and also you can, or the more updated version, PMF IAS book for your environment. That is more than sufficient, right? Provided you update it with the current affairs. That might be the Glasgow Summit, COP26, all those things, right? So yesterday we spoke about the biodiversity and various other stuff, and the wildlife diseases. I told you 8 wildlife diseases which are very threatening to all the wildlife on earth, right? Today we are going to speak about the plant diversity of India. Plant diversity of India. So plant is called what? Flora or fauna? What is flora and what is fauna? Flora is the plant variety, fauna is the animal variety, right? So we when it comes to plant diversity of India, we are one of the most diverse countries. We have many species of plants, trees and everything in various biogeographic provinces. So how many provinces are there? 25 provinces, 10 zones are there in India. 2 reams and some 4 biomes we have in India, right? So when it comes to plants, the first thing is, first classification of a plant is herb. H-E-R-B. What do you mean by herb? So herb is a plant whose stem is always green, right? You don't find brown stem in it, right? You always find a green stem in it, right? So it is always green and it is short. It is just 1 meter in length. That is the meaning of a herb. Then you have shrub. What do you mean by shrub? The difference between herb and shrub is it is a woody plant. You have a woody stem in it. That is a shrub, right? It is perennial. It is also short and it starts, see, what is the difference between shrub and a tree? Andre, shrub will start branching from the base, right? As soon as it is grown on the ground, from the ground itself, it will start branching, whereas tree starts branching after a certain length. That is the difference between a shrub, right? So shrub, it can go up to 6 meters. 6 meter is the length. So tree is a woody it is a large woody perennial plant. That is the meaning of a tree. Then you have plant diversity. Under that you have many parasites. So parasites which are dependent on the host plant. Parasites are there. So the first parasite we are talking about is Haustoria roots. H-A-U-S-T-O-R-I-A. What is Haustoria roots? So there are certain plants which do not manufacture their own food, right? They are dependent on the another plant for its food. How does it obtain the food from the another plant? By this Haustoria roots. So this H-A-U-S-T-O-R-I-A, these roots are penetrated into another plant and sucks the nutrition from the other plant. These are the parasite plants, right? So when it comes to parasite plants, you have total parasites and partial parasites. So partial parasites is your, I think it is your sandalwood tree. Sandalwood tree is a partial parasite, right? Half of the nourishment from the soil, half from other plants, right? Other sources, right? So that is a partial parasite. Total parasite andre it depends for the entire nourishment on a different plant, right? So then you have epiphytes. So epiphytes, they grow on the other plants, just like creepers. They grow on the other plant, but they do not derive their nutrition from the host plant, right? Though they grow on the host plant, there is no nutrition component. Then why do they depend on the other plant? Andre, because of light. See, these creeper, balligalu, they want light. So they take the help of a tree and reach up to the top and take the sunlight, right? So they are not dependent on the tree for the nutrition, right? So when they are growing on a tree, what they will do? One is sunlight, another is they suck the moisture from the air, So these roots which suck the air, moisture from the air, these creepers are called as aerial roots. Aerial roots of the creepers or epiphytes suck the moisture from the air, right? So then you have climbers, that is the balligalu. So they can be green plants as well as woody plants, both green, herb. It can be herb or a woody plant, right? So this is about the plant diversity: herbs, shrub, plants, epiphytes, climbers, all these things. So effects of abiotic. So on the plant, what are the effects of the abiotic components? That is, what are abiotic components? Temperature, moisture, all those things. So the first is intensity of light. Intensity of the light, how does it affect the growth of the plant, right? So you have high intensity. When there is high intensity of light, it affects the growth of the root. Growth of the roots will be good, right? When there is, the heat is high. Why? Because when the heat is high, the stem or leaves doesn't grow, rather the root which is away from the sunlight, it is going to grow, right? So the root growth is high and there is lot of transpiration. When the intensity of the light is high, transpiration, that is evaporation of water from the leaves of the plant, will be high, right? Then you have, when there is low intensity of light, it retards the growth. There won't be much growth of the plant, right? So when there is minimum sunlight, when the sunlight or heat is very minimum, what happens? So the plant is going to die. So why does it? So you keep a plant in your house in shade, in a shade, proper shade, shadow. Why it is going to die? Why does it die? On what mechanism? It accumulates carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide poison is going to get accumulated in the plant and the plant is going to die consequently, right? So that is the thing. Then you have photosynthesis on the light, depending on the light. Photosynthesis depending on the sunlight. Photosynthesis is also going to happen. So photosynthesis, you have two types of two colors in the sunlight is going to affect the photosynthesis. What are the two colors of sunlight which affects the photosynthesis? So how many colors are there? Vibgyor, violet, indigo, blue, green, yellow, orange, red, right? So out of which you have red and blue color. Red and blue color is going to affect the photosynthesis. When the blue light affects, the cells of the plants also have cells, right? Those cells will be very small. Blue light is going to give rise to small cells. Red light is going to give rise to elongated cells, that is stretched cells, right? That is the difference. Very important in your biology questions. They are going to ask you red light, elongated cells, blue light, short cells in the plant. Then UV, if you also know, right, there is one more component of the visible, the electromagnetic radiation, that is the ultraviolet rays. Ultraviolet rays is going to give rise to dwarf plant. What do you mean by dwarf? Dwarf andrenu? Dwarf is short plant. Ultraviolet rays, if you are going to grow a plant, it is going to be very short, right? Okay. Then, so that is the effect of the sunlight and heat. The next is frost effect. Frost andre ice, right? Snow and ice. What is the effect of frost? So it is going to kill the young plants. Young plants are going to be killed by the frost. So why? What happens when there is frost? The soil moisture will be there in the soil, right? So the amount of moisture in the soil, the water content is in the soil is more than the water in the rivers and lakes put together, as well as the atmosphere put together, right? So when there is frost, what happens? The soil, the water droplets in the soil, they are going to freeze. When they freeze, the plants are going to die, right? That is one thing. And when there is frost, the transpiration also increases. The amount of water from the plant is going to evaporate more when there is more frost, right? So then one more effect of the frost is it is going to damage the cells. Cells of the plant are going to be damaged because of the frost. That is the second thing. So how does it, how does the cell gets damaged? So what happens in the between the cells, there are intercellular spaces. See, let's say these are the cells of the plant. So there are spaces between the cells. So in these spaces, there will be water. The water is going to get frozen. Water gets frozen and the cells definitely require water, right? So cells require water, but the cells get dehydrated. When they get dehydrated, they are going to die. They are going to die. So what happens? See, these intercellular spaces, the water is frozen. What happens? The plant needs water. Some amount of water will be there in the cell. That water will be sucked by the plant and the cell will become dehydrated and dead. This is about the effect of the frost. Then you have the effect of the snow. Frost is different from snow. Frost is ice. Snow, you have the snowfall. So because of snow, what is the effect on the stem of the plant will be there. If excess snow falls on the stem is going to bend because of the weight of the snow. That is first effect. And the second thing is, if there is snowfall on the ground, what happens? It acts like a blanket. When it acts like a blanket, it is going to protect the soil. The soil is protected from excess cold. See, you might ask me, snow itself is cold. How does it is going to protect? See, this snow is going to act like a blanket. So the outside coldness, cold weather is not going to impact the soil because of the snow. That is the effect of the snow. The next is temperature effect. We saw the effect of the heat and sunlight. Now we are going to look into the effect of temperature on the plant growth. So if there is high temperature, what happens? The plant is going to die. Why does it die? So when there is high temperature, there is one thing called protoplasmic protein. It is a protein. So this protoplasmic protein will be present in all plants and trees, right? So this protoplasmic protein is going to coagulate because of excess temperature. What do you mean by coagulation? C-O-A-G-U-L-A-T-I-O-N. What do you mean by coagulation? Like that, this protoplasmic protein is going to coagulate and the plant is going to die. And when there is high temperature, all the pests and diseases are going to attack the plants. That is also one more effect. And the moisture content in the plant is going to depleted when there is high temperature. That is the third effect. So that is one thing. And because of temperature, there is one more effect which is very, very important. The effect is called as dieback. D-I-E-B-A-C-K. What is dieback? The plant is, see, when the plant is dying, it is going to die from the tip of the plant. See, let's say I'm going to draw a very bad picture of a plant because I know it will be bad. So that's why I'm warning you. So let's say this is a plant and some leaves. So the plant is going to die from the tip, not from the bottom. It is going to start dying from the tip. That is the concept of dieback. It is because of increased temperature. This is an adaptive mechanism. What happens in the temperature is right, is going to start dying from here. But let's say it is dead till here and the temperature becomes favorable, it is going to grow again from here. So it is an adaptive mechanism or protective mechanism. But please remember, in the concept of dieback, the roots are not going to die. Roots are going to remain alive. So whenever there is favorable conditions, suitable temperature and moisture, the plant is going to grow again. So this is the concept of the effect of the abiotic components on the plant, on the various plants. Next, we are going to look at the one more interesting topic, insectivorous plants. What do you mean by insectivorous plants? Which eat insects, which is a non-veg plant. So it eats and captures and eats the insects, right? So in insectivorous plants, you have two types of plants. One is active insectivorous plant, another is passive insectivorous plant. Under active insectivorous plant, what it is going to do? It is going to act as a leaf trap. There will be a leaf. If an insect comes and sits, it is going to close. That is active insectivorous. Passive insectivorous, there will be a pitfall mechanism. So when let's say there is a plant like this, if a insect comes and sits here, it is going to fall because of the slippery surface. It is going to fall here and get digested. So this is the what? This is the passive insectivorous. So how does these plants attract the insects, Andre? So it is going to attract by brilliant colors. This insect, I am going to show you some insectivorous plants. They will be very attractive to look, right? So, but please remember, under Schedule 6 of Wildlife Protection Act, it is illegal to cultivate these plants, insectivorous plants. These plants are not allowed to be cultivated. One second. See how good they are looking. They are very attractive. So these insects, they get attracted and die. So we should feel bad for the insects. Okay, so they have brilliant colors. See how many colors they have, and now over that they have sweet secretion. They are going to secrete some sweet liquid. So these insects want to eat that liquid, in turn get eaten up by the plant, right? So this insectivorous plants, why do they grow? See, I know you know that there is photosynthesis and plants produce their own food. But why is the concept of insectivorous plants? So the answer is, see, not all plants manufacture their own food. If a plant is grown in a poor soil where the nutrient condition is very low, they cannot manufacture their own food. They need to supplement their food by external resources. So they are going to capture the insects and digest them, right? So when there is a poor soil and acidic soil is there, they do not get any nutrition. So, and also when there is anaerobic condition andre, there is no oxygen. So in the soil, in those conditions, these plants are going to grow, right? So these plants are going to supplement their nutrition by eating and digesting these insects, right? These are not normal plants. They are just like some vehicles have CNG plus petrol. So they derive nutrition from soil also by eating insects also, right? So what are the insectivorous plants you are going to find in India? So the first insectivorous plant is Drosera, also called as sundew. Drosera. So they grow in marshy areas. I'm going to show you the picture. So what does this Drosera do? Insect trapping mechanism. It is going to secrete some sweet liquid. These insects want to drink that liquid. They go and get trapped, in turn get eaten up. So this Drosera, I'm going to show you the picture. Here it is, Drosera. Okay. So this is Drosera. So there is secrete some good liquid and attract the thing. So this Drosera, it is useful for humans also. How? So mosereppa kalva, you know, curdling of milk. So this Drosera liquid, if you put in the some milk, it is going to become curd. Curdling of milk, this Drosera is useful. That is one thing. The second one is Aldrovanda. Aldrovanda is the second plant. So Aldrovanda, it looks like this. Not very attractive, but see, this is Aldrovanda. So what does it do? So Aldrovanda, it is a rootless aquatic plant. It is found in the aquatic areas, right? So where do you find this Aldrovanda in India? In the Sundarbans region, Sundarban aquatic ecosystem. So they have leaf blades. See, they have blade-like leaves. So these leaves are going to get close once the insect sits on it. Right, that is the insect mechanism, insect trapping mechanism of the Aldrovanda plant. The next plant is Nephenthis. So what is the use of Nephenthis for humans? So they might ask you, because Nephenthis. So this Nephenthis, it is used for treating cholera in humans. See, this is Nephenthis. It is similar to a picture plant. It is going to So it is a picture plant. It is called a picture plant. So it is used in treating cholera. Where do you find it in India? So you are going to find this in the Meghalaya region where there is very heavy rainfall. These plants are found in the very high rainfall region, right? So they have a pitfall trap. Pitfall trap andre, see, insects are going to sit here and sit in this. So there will be some liquid and they are going to slide into this sac, right, and get digested. So you are going to find it in the Meghalayas. Then you have bladder warts. Bladder warts is another type of insectivorous plant. So what is this? Where do you find bladder warts? You are going to find it in the wetland areas. So bladder warts, what happens in bladder warts? There will be water current. So bladder wart. So I am going to show you bladder wart as well. So this is the bladder wart. So what do they do? See, once an insect sits here, they will secrete some water, and that force of water is going to make the insect drop into the sac. That is the bladder wart. There will be a water current in it, right? So then you have one more plant called as butterwort. Butterwort, where do you find it? You will find it in the Himalayan region. They just like this Nephenthis, they also have leaf trap mechanism. Leaf is going to close as soon as the insect sits, right? So these insectivorous plants, there are many advantages as well. They act as medicinal properties. They are used in treating cholera, typhoid, jaundice, and the other diseases, as well as the wounds and some psychosomatic diseases, anxiety, stress, all those things they are used to treat. That is the uses. Threats ಏನಂದ್ರೆ they are prohibited from cultivation. Some people cultivate it in order to trade it. For trading, they are going to cultivate these plants because they are very attractive. So just like showpiece, they are going to be cultivated. So they say that I have seen some movies, these insectivorous plants are also going to eat the humans. Some movies they show that insectivorous plants is going to consume the humans also. Is it true? So there is no such plant as of now, right? So the next concept is invasive alien species. So what do you mean by invasive alien species? Invasive alien species. Alien means they are not native to the place. They are not native to the place and they are invasive. And they have come from somewhere else. So what is the positives and negatives? And see, the negatives are more than positives. So the best example is your what? Parthenium, Congress grass. So that is the best example of invasive. So it has come from Central America, right? So they are threat to the native species. Andre, our own species, they act as a threat and they finish off the native species. Not only that, they are threat to the biodiversity as well. It leads to extinction of many plants and animals. That is a threat. So there are many invasive alien species. It might be plants and animals. So some predators andre, so they eat other animals. That is also in invasive species. Pathogens andre, bacteria, virus can be invasive. So your COVID virus is an invasive species, right? Because it has come from outside India, that is from China. Parasites, they are going to survive on the other plants and animals. Those are also invasive species. So in India, there was earlier species richness was very high. That is endemic species or local species were very high. Because of invasive species, because of the globalization, now species richness has been reducing. These invasive species are acting as a threat. Right? So when there is invasive species, what is the threat? You tell me what is the threat. So you know that in agricultural fields, there are, let's say you have planted rice, paddy crop. So let's say there are some weeds, invasive weeds. What do they do? How does it affect they spoil the soil, that is one thing. They are going to consume all the food and leave less food for the original crop that is there, and it might help in some insects to grow, right, and attack the original crop. So what are the effects of invasive species? One is it reduces the biodiversity, it acts as a threat to economy, it destroys the crops, it destroys the resources, it destroys the soil, it destroys the water, it brings changes in the climate, it affects the food chain. All these are the effects of the invasive species. So I'm going to give you some examples of invasive species. First I'm going to tell you fauna. Fauna andre animals. So what are the animals which have invaded India? Andre some one ant is there called crazy ant. Crazy ant is an invasive species. African snail. Basunula. African snail is an invasive species. Your myna, your favorite myna bird, it is not local to India. That is also invasive species. Your goldfish. Goldfish is an invasive species. It is not good for the local species. Even your pigeon, where you find everywhere pigeons in Bangalore, they are also invasive species. Your donkeys are invasive species. They are not natural to India. Donkeys are also invasive species. 6 things I have told. Flora, when it comes to invasive species, the plants are very important. Invaded plants, what are they? So one plant is needle bush. There is one plant called needle bush. It has come from South America. So originally from South America, now it has invaded India. So see, these invasive species, how they have increased andre. One example I am going to give you. So it might be because of trade, right? It might be because of, say, import and export. But one good example is, you know, ships, right? Ships used for trading the goods. So let's say in Central America, one ship is there. that ship is loading the goods to be transported to India. So ship al enagutte, let's say this is a sorry, 1 second. Let's say this is a ship, right? So they will save water within it in order to maintain the height of the ship above surface level. So if they want to come up, they are going to release the water. If they want to go down into the water, they are going to suck the water. That is why if you have visited in some harbor, then you will be seeing water gushing out of the ship, right? So as to ship comes above. So what happens? See, in Central America, this ship wants to go down so that it wants to float. What happens? It is going to weight ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆಗುತ್ತಲ್ವಪ್ಪ, so it is going to go down. So it is going to suck the water into the ship. So with the water, not only the water that is going to get in, also the species, aquatic and local species are going to get into the ship, right? It is going to stay there. So this ship comes to India, let's say Mangalore port, it is going to come and it is going to unload the goods. So it wants to come up. It wants to come up. What does it do? It is going to release the water. So all the species, plants and animals of Central America which were sucked into this ship column now released into Mangalore port. So invaded India. So this is one. Did you understand the concept? This is how, this is one of the ways of invasion taking place. So earlier British time, they deliberately got so many plants and animals into India. They acted as invasive species. So first is a needle bush. Second is goatweed. Goatweed, it has come from tropical America, Central American region. Then you have Parthenium. Where does it come from? Tropical North America. Tropical North America. Then you have one more plant, Palmyra plant. Palmyra, Palmyra, or toddy palm. Toddy palm, it has come from toddy. So, Neera madtaralla, from the toddy palm, Neera. That has come from tropical Africa. Then you have black wattle. Black wattle plant has come from Australia. Then prickly poppy or mad plant. There is one more plant. They are also invasive species, not very important. You have this plant is important. Water hyacinth. Water hyacinth. Hyancith. So in your Loktak Lake, where is Loktak Lake? Manipur. So there you will find the water hyacinth, which is a threat to the local lake species. So where does water hyacinth come from? It comes from tropical America as well. Then you have your favorite touch me not plant, Mutrumuni. So touch me not plant, where has it come from? Brazil. So it has come from the Brazil. Then one more plant is called 4 o'clock plant. 4 o'clock plant, a 4 p.m. plant. So that plant has come from Peru. And one more plant, very important plant, they are going to ask you, Prospois julifera. Prospois julifera, very important invasive species. It has also come from the Mexico region. Mexico, where is it? In the North America or Central American region, Mexico, Prospois julifera. So these are the invasive alien plants. So this is about it. Some of them are good for medicine. Most of them are very bad for the ecosystem. Next, we will talk about the medicinal plants. Some plants are very important for the medicinal perspective. So I am going to show you the medicinal plant pictures meanwhile, so that you see it and understand it. So the first medicinal plant is bedome cycad. So bedome cycad, this is the plant. It is a medicinal plant. It is used for treating rheumatoid arthritis, that is knee pain or joint pain, rheumatoid arthritis, bedome cycad. So then you have one more medicinal plant, blue vanda. Blue vanda, where do you find blue vanda? Andre, in the northeast region. Northeast region, it is also useful in various treating various diseases. Then you have one more plant called Kuth plant, Kuth. Kuth plant, it is used in anti-inflammatory, as a anti-inflammatory drug. What do you mean by anti-inflammatory? What do you mean by inflammation? Uta. So anti-inflammatory drug. Which plant? Kuth plant, right? Also Kuth is used as in making perfumes. In making perfumes it is used. Then you have lady's slipper orchid. Lady's slipper orchid. So this is also a medicinal plant. This is the lady's slipper orchid. So it is a collector's item. People have to collect it and grow it in their gardens. So what is the use of lady's slipper orchid? Andre, it is used to treat stress, anxiety, insomnia. What do you mean by anxiety? Feeling fearful. So even though there is no threat, see, when there is a snake, it is natural for you to fear. So when there is a snake, if you don't fear means what? It means either you are a snake catcher or you are high on alcohol. Right? Those are the two possibilities. So, but in anxiety what happens? You will be feeling fearful even without any reason. Right? So treating that is the use of lady's slipper orchid. Then what is insomnia? Sleeplessness, difficulty in falling asleep, right? So it is that is a silent pandemic. Many people are having this problem, but not everyone are seeking help. That is the tragedy. Then you have one more plant called red vanda. That is also a collector's item. It is also used in treating psychiatric disorders, stress, anxiety, all those things. The most important medicinal plant is Sarpagandha. Sarpagandha. So, Sarpagandha, it is grown in the Himalayas, Western Ghats and Andaman and Nicobar region. So, it is helpful in treating nervous system disorder. It has a sedative action. Sedation means what? Calming action. So it calms your nerves. If you are highly tensed, if you take Sarpagandha, it is going to reduce the tension. It is a natural remedy, right? Natural remedy. So then you have tree fern. Tree fern is a plant which is used for food. Then you have cycads. Cycads plant. Cycad plant, it is a gymnosperm. What do you mean by gymnosperm? I told you yesterday. So whose seeds are exposed. So they are also used in food, consumed as a food or starch. So it is a living fossil. Living fossil andre, it has, if you study the cycads, you can find information about the evolution of the earth. So it is a living fossil. You will find these cycads in the Western Ghats and Eastern Ghats. Then one more plant is elephant's foot. Elephant's foot is one more plant which is used for medicinal properties. So this is all about the medicinal plants. Then we are going to look into the medicinal plants is done, invasive species is done. So then we are going to study the structure of the plant itself. Now, how is the structure of the plant? So how many parts does a plant have? So the first part is root. So what are the functions of root? So it takes water and nutrition, also provides stability for the plant. Your coconut palm, if you see the roots, they are widespread so that the plant stands upright. So that is one thing. Then crown of the plant. Crown means the top layer, right? So it is going to provide shade, and crown is the place where the leaves manufacture food, photosynthesis, and crown is the place where transpiration also takes place. Then leaves. What are the functions of the leaf? Leaf is called as a food factory of the plant. What is the pigment present in leaves? Chlorophyll, green pigment, right? So, because of the photosynthesis, carbon dioxide and water is converted into what? Sugar and oxygen. Sugar and oxygen is given out. Then you have branches are providing stability. Then you have trunk. Trunk is going to give the support. Trunk of the tree is going to give the support for the plant, right? So truncally you have two vascular bundles, xylem and phloem. Xylem, you know, it transports water and minerals upward from the soil. Phloem, food and nutrition from the leaves to the roots. So this xylem is also called as sapwood. Very important. Xylem is also called as sapwood. So it is the youngest part of the plant. It is the youngest part. Then you have annual rings in the plant. So your coconut palm has annual rings, right? So rings in the plant like this. So it shows how old is the plant. So the study of this is called as dendrochronology. And also they study climate based on these rings. That field is called as paleoclimatology. Studying the past climate based on the trees is called as a paleoclimatology. Then you have bark of the tree. Bark means what? Outer layer, chip. What is it called? Chip, not chip. The outer woody layer. So where you can remove it, right? So that is the bark of the tree. So the bark of the tree, it is the outer protection layer. It is made of dead cells. Then you have one more part called as cambium. What is a cambium? It is a layer consisting of living cells. Bark is dead cells. Cambium is living cells, right? Then you have one more part called heartwood. Heartwood. So what is heartwood? It is a dead sapwood. When the xylem dies, it becomes the heartwood. So it is the hardest part of the plant. Heartwood is the hardest plant. It provides stability for the plant to stand straight. Then you have one more last layer is pith. Pith. So this is a centermost layer of the plant. Pith is a centermost layer. So it is a dark spot of living cells. So if you take the cross section of a tree, so the centermost part is the pith. It is a layer of living cells. It is very dark in color. So it transports the nutrition, right? Nutrition pathway. So it is highly protected. So there is thick layer outside which shows that pith is the most important and most vulnerable layer, right? Okay, then we are going to talk about the roots now. Root of the plant. How many types of roots are there? So the first one is taproot, right? So taproot, it is a descending root. So it is a normal type of root, like this. So this is a taproot system. It is a descending root. It is prolonged, right? It is very long, right? So that is the taproot. Then you have lateral root. Lateral root, and they arise from the main taproot and spread horizontally. So those are the lateral roots. Then you have adventurous roots. Adventurous roots andre from the plant, just like the banyan tree. From the plant itself, some roots are going to grow. Those are adventurous roots, right? That is the third thing. So you have many types of adventurous roots. First is buttresses. Buttresses. I am going to show you the picture because without which you will not understand. Buttresses. Buttress roots. So see, this is the buttress root. So it is a adventurous root. They are outgrowths. Outgrowths andre from the plant it has grown out. They are outgrowths. They connect stem to the root. See, the stem of the plant is connected to the root by the buttresses. Then you have prop roots. Prop roots, the best example is the roots of the banyan tree. Banyan tree. From the branches of the tree, they are suspended in the air. They are hanging in the air. Then you have stilt roots. Prop roots, you know, banyan tree, stilt roots. I am going to show you the image. So they grow from the stem layer, bottom layer, stilt roots. So see, this is a stilt root. This is a stilt root, this is a stilt root, these are the stilt roots. So these stilt roots you will find in the, where do you find it? Mangroves. In the mangrove region you are going to find the stilt roots. So they grow from the buttress. They grow from the buttress. They are above ground level roots. Above ground level. They grow above the ground level. Then you have the pneumatophore roots. Pneumatophore roots. So they are spike-like projections above the ground. So it's better for me to show the image. See, they are roots spike-like projections from the ground, right? So why do they have this spike-like projection? So to get the oxygen from the submerged roots. Roots are submerged, they need oxygen, they take it from these pneumatophore roots. Then you have storage roots. So they are modified roots. They store food and water. So what are the best example of storage roots? You are going to tell me. So storage root, they store the food and water. So what are the best? Your carrot, beetroot are the storage roots. They are storage, right? So they are the storage roots. So they are also called as taproot. So the taproot or the tuber roots, they themselves act as the storage roots. Storage of water and food, right? Then you have the one more special type of root called mycorrhiza. I'm going to show you the image. So it is actually a fungi. This is also a type of root. So this is a root plus fungal tissue. It has a root plus fungal tissue. Okay. So this is all about the root. Then we will talk about the canopy. Canopy and Renu. What is a canopy? That is the topmost layer of the tree. Canopy of tree. See, this is the canopy. And the topmost layer, see, this is the canopy. So these are not the right images for you to show the canopy. Yeah, see, this is the canopy. This is the canopy. So canopy, there are many types. One is closed density canopy, when the density is 1.0, fully closed, that is closed density canopy. Dense canopy, when the density is more than 0.75. Then thin canopy, when the density is more than 0.50. And open canopy, when the density is less than 0.50, it is called as open canopy, right? So then we have one more, so one fact I am going to give you now. The fact is there is an area of study called phenology. Phenology, what do you mean by phenology? It is a study of periodic events of the plant. So, when does it fruit? When does the seed grows? When does the leaves fall? That is a study of phenology, right? There is one more phenomena called as etiolation. Etiolation in the plants. What do you mean by etiolation? See, when the plants do not receive sufficient sunlight, there is no light, then the plant and the leaves are going to turn pale yellow in color. Pale yellow in color, and they are going to turn pale yellow in color. That is called as etiolation, and the leaves are going to become long, elongation. That is the meaning of etiolation, right? Then you have autumn tints, concept of autumn tints. So during the autumn, the plants are going to change the color. So that is different from etiolation. Etiolation, because of loss of sunlight, the plant is going to turn pale yellow. In autumn tints, it is because of the leaves falling, deciduous forest. Then you have the last concept under this, taperism. What is taperism? See, the tree is going to taper. So at the bottom, the thickness is high. As you move upward, the thickness is low. Why the thickness is high at the bottom? See, in order to provide stability, strength to the plant. Second is, see, what happens at the ground level, the pressure of the air is very high. So, because of the wind, the plant may fall off. In order to prevent the plant from falling off, the tree has a tapered mechanism. It is a natural adaptation mechanism so that the tree doesn't get uprooted. So that is one thing. So this is all about the plant diversity and the study of plants in India. Next, we will move to the new concept of marine organisms in India. Marine organisms. So when it comes to marine organisms, the first organism is your plankton. As plant is on a land, plankton is in the ocean. So I'm going to show you the image of plankton. I've shown it. See, these are the planktons. I had shown it earlier, no? This image earlier I had shown. One second. So these are the planktons. Plants in the ocean. See. These are the planktons. They are the plants in the ocean. So you have many types. They actually float in the water. So you have many types of plankton. The first is phytoplankton. Phytoplankton. So best example is algae. Algae are the phytoplankton. Then you have zooplankton. So phytoplankton is a plant, whereas zooplankton is an animal, right? Zooplankton, the best example is single-celled animal, protozoa. Protozoa are the single-celled animals. They are also plankton, zooplankton, right? Phytoplankton, zooplankton, you should know. So the plankton population is high in the tropical waters. That is between Tropic of Cancer and Tropic of Capricorn. So when it comes to phytoplankton, see, this phytoplankton, what is the use of phytoplankton? Andre, it is going to produce the food by consuming it has chlorophyll. So it consumes the chlorophyll and produces the food, right? And also it gives out the oxygen. Oxygen is given out. So these phytoplanktons are sometimes bacteria. They are bacteria and they are single-celled organisms. Phytoplanktons are single-celled organisms. So what are the best examples of phytoplankton? So some organisms called cyanobacteria, diatoms and dinoflagellas. Cyanobacteria. Cyanobacteria, see, cyanobacteria, diatoms and dinoflagella. Dinoflagellates. So dinoflagellates, so these are the microscopic organisms. So which are phytoplanktons. Phytoplanktons in the ocean. So what are the factors which affect the distribution of phytoplanktons? See, first is phytoplankton or zooplankton. What are the factors? Abiotic factors. The first factor is light. Light is the most important factor. Where there is sunlight, so only the uppermost layer has got the sunlight. So it is called as what? It is called as photic zone, where there the light reaches. Photic zone also called as euphotic zone. EUPHOTIC, euphotic zone. So the light is the first factor. The second factor is nutrients. Inorganic nutrients. What are the nutrients? Nitrogen, phosphorus, magnesium, silicon, silicates, iron. So where there is high prevalence, there the planktons are found. Then temperature. Temperature is the third factor. It helps in or affects the photosynthesis. Then salinity of the water, uppinamsha, that also affects the phytoplanktons. Then zooplanktons also affects the phytoplanktons. Why? How? See, the zooplankton animals, they consume the phytoplanktons. They eat the phytoplanktons, just like how carnivorous eats the herbivorous animals eats the plants, right? So the zooplanktons, if it eats more of phytoplanktons, the phytoplanktons is going to reduce, right? So where do you find the more of phytoplanktons, Andre? See, it is not in the tropical region. You are going to find more of phytoplankton plants in the higher latitudes, that is the polar and other regions. Tropical region, it is lower. Phytoplanktons are lower, right? So what is the importance of phytoplanktons, Andre? They are primary producers. They produce the food, right? So they impact the carbon cycle, and also they act as a carbon sink. Lot of carbon dioxide is saved in the phytoplanktons. They act as a carbon sink. So it acts as a biological carbon pump. So the carbon dioxide is saved in the water, within the water, in the oceans, in the phytoplanktons. So it acts as a biological carbon pump. It acts as a natural carbon pump, right? So the next level of organism is the zooplankton. So just like the tropic levels is primary producers, herbivorous, first level carnivorous, secondary carnivorous, tertiary carnivorous, and the fourth is the what? The detritus organisms, which is going to degrade or decompose the dead organisms. So similarly, the second level in the tropic level is zooplanktons, right? So they transfer they eat the phytoplanktons and take the nutrition, and these zooplanktons are in turn eaten by fish. Fish is in turn eaten by sharks, right? So likewise, the food chain is affected. So these zooplanktons, where do you find it in India? Andre, in mangrove region, you are going to find lot of zooplanktons, right? So these zooplanktons, if there is good quantity of zooplankton, Andre, it shows the health of the ecosystem, whether a ecosystem is healthy or not. So what are the best examples? Jellyfish. Jellyfish is a zooplankton, and also flagellates. These flagellates, not dinoflagellates, the normal flagellates. Dinoflagellate is a phytoplankton. So flagellates, Flagella. Okay, flagellates. So these are the organisms, microscopic organisms which eats the plants and in turn eaten by the fish, right? Flagellates are the example. Then you have sea grass. So there is grassland within the sea called as sea grass. See, this is seagrass. Can you see this? Can you see the images? This is seagrass. See, these are grow closer to the surface. They don't grow in the deep ocean water. They grow closer to the surface. They are angiosperms. Angiosperms means the seed is closed. Seed is closed, right? They are marine flowering plants. They flower. They give the flowers, right? So they are grown in the shallow coastal waters, shallow areas, right? So they should have sandy bottom. Sand should be there for this seagrass to grow, right? So also, where do you find this seagrass in India? Andre, you will find it in the Tamil Nadu coast. You will find it in the Andaman and Nicobar region. You will find it in the Lakshadweep and all these regions. So what is the condition for this seagrass? There should be optimum temperature, proper temperature should be there, and there should be calm water. The wave action tumba idre, seagrass is not going to grow. There should be calm water. So, and they grow in the sea water itself, not in the fresh water, right? So they need sand for growth. So how many species of seagrass are there in India, Andre? There are 14 species of seagrass in India, totally 14 species. So what are the functions of seagrass? So they are going to capture the sediments, river in the sediments barutala, that is going to be captured by the seagrass. They act as a source of food for the fish and they break the wave. Wave is coming fast andre, because of seagrass the wave speed is reduced. Then erosion of the coastal shelf, continental shelf is reduced. Erosion is reduced because of seagrass, and also they act as nutrient sinks. That is all this nutrition, that is silicates, iron, nitrogen, phosphorus, all these things are saved in the seagrass, and they act as a home, habitat for the fish, right? So the seagrass you will find more in the lagoons. What is a lagoon? It is a meeting point of river and ocean. There you will find the seagrass, right? So this is about the seagrass. So what is the threat of seagrass? Excessive nutrition, that is eutrophication is the threat. Then trawling means what? Trawling means deep water fishing, right? They are going to put the machines in the deep water and just like bulldozer, they are going to take all the fish, and that trawling will destroy all the sea grasses, right? That is one effect. And silting, lot of silt is going to get accumulated. That is also threat to the sea grass, right? Then you have seaweed. Next is the concept of seaweed. See, this seaweed actually has medicinal properties. See, this is seaweed. These are the seaweeds. So, seaweeds, they are actually algae. But big in size. They are macroscopic algae. They are macroscopic algae, right? So these seaweeds, they are non-differentiated plants. Non-differentiated andre, see, can you differentiate the root, leaves and the stem? No, right? They are non-differentiated plants. They have leaf-like appendages, andre, leaf-like outgrowths like this. leaf-like joints are there, appendages are there, right? So they are attached to rocks. They are attached to rocks or coral reefs. They are attached to rocks or coral reefs. See, they are growing on coral. They are attached to rocks. So this is seaweed. So they are found in the tidal zone where there are tides, high tide and low tide. There you are going to find the seaweed. See, just like the seagrass, the seaweed is also grown in the shallow water region, shallow coastal waters, right? So there are many types of seaweed based on color, right? So blue-green seaweed, green seaweed, brown seaweed, as well as red seaweed. So these are the basic colors of the seaweed. See, these seaweeds, they said they can be used as fertilizer. So somewhere in Andhra Pradesh and Tamil Nadu, they are growing these seaweeds deliberately, so that they take the seaweed, dry it, and later they use it for fertilizers in the agriculture, right? So what is the function of the seaweed? What is the function of the seaweed? So you find this seaweed can be used as food. That is one thing. Humans can process it and eat it. Animals can also eat it. Then they can be used as fertilizers, and they can be used as medicinal plants. There is one disease called goiter disease. For this goiter disease, this seaweed is useful. It also has a antibacterial property. It has what? Antibacterial property. So what are some of the seaweeds you have? What are the some? So what are the different types of seaweeds? So the first is agar agar. Agar agar is a seaweed. So you might have heard this name, agar agar. It is used in commercial. So they have asked this a question many times in exam. Agar agar, what is it? It is a seaweed. So now they are selling it. Agar agar, they have made it into some proper product and they are selling it, right? Agar agar is one thing. Then you have one more thing. What? That is one of the seaweed. So when this seaweed degrades, when the seaweed is going to die and decompose, what does it do? It is going to give out methane gas. So that methane can be used for biogas, right? That is there. Then this seaweed can also be used as a indicator. If there is pollution, there is a color change in the seaweed. That is also the use of the seaweed. So what is the harm of seaweed? If the seaweed is going to, if it is going to rot, it produces toxic gases. Toxic gases is produced. So hydrogen sulfide, all these gases are produced and poison the environment. So this is all about the marine environment, and we will now move to the most important concept or topic called protected area. What are the different types of protected area in India? Protected area network. So in this chapter, I am going to give the gist or the broad framework. In this, we are going to discuss wildlife sanctuaries, national parks, reserve forest, not reserve forest. See, when was this reserve forest concept came in India? So the heading. So we are going to talk about the protected area network. protected area network, right? So when was this concept of one second, reserve forest in India, when does it start? So it started during the time of British. The exact year I'll tell you now. So it is based on the Forest Act of 1927. Please note down, reserved forests are a British colonial legacy based on the Forest Act of 1927. They are going to ask this in the exam. So this is about the reserve forest. Apart from only reserve forest was there in the British time. After that, whatever came, reserve forest is also a protected forest, protected area. Everything is a protected area. Protected area is the broad heading under which we are going to discuss this. So, first, after independence, how are we protecting our forest or our landscape or wildlife? So, we have the Wildlife Protection Act. We know that it was enacted in the 1972. So, also, according to Wildlife Protection Act, the national parks, wildlife sanctuaries are demarcated, right? So, national parks and wildlife sanctuaries have a statutory backing, legal backing in the Wildlife Protection Act 1972. Today, we have approximately around 670 to 700 protected areas in India. Approximately 5% of India's area is protected. So, Wildlife Protection Act is the main thing. Apart from that, there is one more act, National Policy for Wildlife Conservation. National Policy for the Wildlife Conservation enacted in 1970, in the year 1970, right? So, first we will discuss the concept of wildlife sanctuary. Wildlife sanctuary according to Wildlife Protection Act. So, who declares the wildlife sanctuary? Is it the state government or the central government? So, it is actually both. Both of them can declare, but primarily it is the state government which is going to declare. So, on what basis they are going to declare? So, the criteria is the place or the forest should be of ecological, geomorphological and natural significance. Ecological, environmental, geomorphological, that is geomorphology, land, relief based and natural significance. So, for what purpose? For protecting the wildlife, right? So, this is about the wildlife sanctuary. Then you have national park. National park is also declared by the state government, even though the central government can declare. So, that is also based on the ecological, geomorphological and natural significance for the protection of wildlife. So, I told you these two things. What is the difference between wildlife sanctuary and national park? What is the difference, Andre? See, national park has a greater degree of protection. Wildlife sanctuary has a lesser degree of protection. That is the difference. Then, see, in national park, all the activities are completely prohibited. You cannot do grazing. You cannot build any hut, right? So, all activities are prohibited. But in wildlife sanctuary, certain human activities, certain human intervention is permitted, right? Like grazing, like collecting minor forest produce by the tribals. All these are permitted in the wildlife sanctuary. That is the second difference. And the third thing is, national wildlife sanctuary is declared based on a particular species. If the tiger is there, the wildlife sanctuary is declared based on tiger, right? Whereas national park is declared for all the species together, right? This is the third difference. The fourth difference is, so these are the three differences. So even the central government can declare both the wildlife sanctuary and national parks. It is not only the state government. So if the state government is going to declare it, what is the procedure for declaration? So first, state government is going to give an initial notification. Initial notification, it is given saying that this place is going to be declared as a wildlife sanctuary or a national park, right? And also it is going to say why it is declaring it, what is the intention behind declaration, whether it is going to protect any particular species, plant or animal, that intention is told, right? So this declaration can be made within a reserve forest or outside the reserve forest, right? Reserve forest based on what? British Act. So this, so it is going to declare regions of ecological, geomorphological or natural significance. So after the initial notification, it is going to entice the public opinion. Public can give their opinion. Later on, after all the procedure is completed, they are going to issue a final notification. Final notification, in that it is going to demarcate the area, or it is going to show the limits of the area. What is the limit based on which? So what is the limit of the wildlife sanctuary or national park is demarcated. So that is the final notification. Central government can also declare it. It is also going to give the limits of the area. Same procedure for central government also. But central government has an additional responsibility of declaring territorial waters. What is a territorial water? You are going to tell me up to how much kilometer? Up to how much kilometer from the land boundary of the or the baseline is territorial water? 12 nautical miles. Were you sleeping? It is 12 nautical miles, right? So when they are declaring the territorial waters, some water is being declared as a wildlife sanctuary or a, where have they declared wildlife sanctuary in the or national park in the water region? Can you give me one example? Gulf of Mannar, right? Also Sundarban region, right? So if they are declaring the territorial water as a protected area, they have to take the opinion of chief naval hydrographer. So it is a position post. So that person's opinion they have to take, chief naval hydrographer, right? So once they declare, when the state government and the central government, they declare the protected area, later on they want to make some changes, bring about some changes. So then they have to take the opinion of National Board of Wildlife, right? The initial notification is given by state government or central government, but the later on opinion is given by the state government, or opinion is given later on, alteration of the boundaries is given by the National Board of Wildlife. So who is the chairman of National Board of Wildlife? So I'm going to give you a hint. So he is the chairman of the National Disaster Management Authority as well. Prime Minister is the chairman of the National Board of Wildlife, right? He is also the chairman of the National Disaster Management Authority, right? So this is okay. So when they are declaring the protected area, so what they do, there will be a lot of people, right? Some tribal people will be there. Their rights are under threat. So their rights have to be settled, their economic rights, their land rights, right? They have rights over the minor forest produce according to the Forest Act of 2006, right? Forest Act 2006 gives rights to the forest dwellers to access to minor forest produce. There are two kinds of right under the 2006 Act. One is the individual right, other is the collective right. So for these people who are residing in the forest area, the state government is going to make alternative arrangement, right? So for collection of fuel wood or fodder or other forest produce, honey, bamboo, wax, all those things. For collection of those, the state government is going to make alternative arrangement. Who makes it? So they are going to appoint a collector. A person is appointed as a collector to determine the rights of the people, rights of the individual people on the lands and other resources in the wildlife sanctuary and national parks. So that person is going to give the rights to the people and issue a notification. Notification is issued, right? So that order is called as collector's order. So what they do, what this collector is going to do, he is going to provide some compensation. If the land is taken away, he is going to provide compensation to this traditional land dwellers, forest dwellers, or certain land area might be set aside for these people to exploit, right? That is the second mechanism. Or they might give the compensation, or they might allow the continuation of right. Whatever the right is there in the within the boundary of national park or the wildlife sanctuary, those rights are continued, right? So this is all about the settlement of rights. So now let's say if you want to enter the protected area, who all can enter? Who all can enter the national park? So you have Bandipur National Park, right? Who all can enter? Can we enter? See, the first is government servants on duty. They can enter. Second kind of person is researchers, photographers and tourist people. They can enter, but they have to take the written permission by Chief Wildlife Warden. Chief Wildlife Warden permission is quintessential. Then the third kind of person who can enter the protected area is right holders. Right holders. So who are the right holders? You have the traditional forest holders, forest dwellers whom I spoke about. They can enter the protected area, right, in order to claim the land rights or in order to exploit the forest resources. The fourth type of people even we can enter, but only while traveling in the highway. Bandipur National Highway, if you are traveling, you can enter, but you can enter and exit. They'll give you a pass while entry and exiting, right? So when it comes to the protection of the protected area, that is National Park and Wildlife Sanctuary, it is the Chief Wildlife Warden. He is the highest authority. He takes all the decisions, right? He is the highest authority and maintains all the protected areas. So you have, apart from the Chief Wildlife Warden, you have National Board of Wildlife and the State Board of Wildlife. This National Board of Wildlife, it is going to give recommendations from time to time in order to alter the status of the national park or wildlife sanctuary. So apart from this, we spoke about now National Park and Wildlife Sanctuary. Now we are going to speak about the Conservation Reserve or Community Reserve. So this Conservation Reserve or Community Reserve, they were started in 2003. 2003, based on what? See, they are also based on the Wildlife Protection Act. Wildlife Protection Act 2003. Wildlife Protection Act 2003. You know that Wildlife Protection Act came in 1972. But what is this 2003? 2003, there was an amendment to the Wildlife Protection Act. 2003, there was an amendment. So in this amendment, they included the Conservation Reserve and Community Reserve within the for the protection. So what is conservation reserve? See, wildlife sanctuary and protected area, they are government efforts, right? Whereas conservation reserve and community reserve, they are effort by the people themselves, traditional tribals or NGOs or civil society. Efforts by them is the conservation reserve. So this act, this conservation reserve, community reserve, gives legal backing to the community efforts. Community is going to protect the area that is getting legal backing by the this act, Wildlife Protection Act, Amendment Act 2003. So first we will talk about the conservation reserve, right? So it is based on the 2003 amendment. So what are these conservation reserves, Andre? See, you have, let's say there is a national park and there is a wildlife sanctuary. This is the area. See, next to this is forest area. Next to this forest area, there is revenue land. What is revenue land? State government land, right? So, this state government land adjacent or next to the national park or a wildlife sanctuary is demarcated for protection. So, that is the conservation reserve. State government area is set aside for protection. So, because see, this is salala, we need some other area. So, revenue land is set aside for protection. That is a conservation reserve. Who manages this conservation reserve? Andre, there is a committee called Conservation Reserve Management Committee, right? So, how does this conservation reserve is declared, Andre? It is declared by the state government. State government declares the conservation reserve, but it is going to consult the local committee. Local population is consulted and then only they are going to declare the conservation reserve. So one fact I am going to give you, which is the first conservation reserve in our country. It is in Tirunelveli district of Tamil Nadu. The name is Tiruppadai Marattur Conservation Reserve is the first conservation reserve in India. Very important fact. It is in the Tirunelveli district of Tamil Nadu. Right? Next you have the concept of community reserve. What does the name indicate? Community reserve means it is the effort of the community or the people themselves. So it is also based on the Wildlife Protection Act, Amendment Act 2003. So if you want to mark an area as a community reserve, the community should agree. The community or the public should agree. So it is based on the community land or private land. What is a community land? So these are government property, government lands, which is not owned by everyone, right? So for example, village pastures, Ulgavlu. So which is where which is owned by the government, which is not owned by anyone, right? That is community land. So community land and even private land can also be marked as a community reserve, but they have to take the permission from the governing authority, right? So what is the advantages of marking the community reserve? One is wildlife protection, plant and animal protection. Then even the socio-economic protection. People's social rights, people's health, education rights are protected. People's economic rights. Let's say some people are taking bamboo and selling it, right? If it is demarcated as a community reserve, it might help them, right? So people's economic rights are protected and also cultural rights. Cultural rights andre, in some villages, trees and forests are treated as gods, right? cultural rights are also protected. They do puja to this neem tree, right? Neem tree, banyan tree also they do puja. Banyan tree they do. People tree, yeah, people tree. Early Mara. So, cultural rights are also protected. So, who manages this community rights? Who manages this community right? Andre, there is Community Reserve Management Committee. There is a community called Community Reserve Management Committee is there, which is going to manage the community reserves, right? So in this community forest, that is private land or community land, if there is to be any change, they have to take the permission of the state government. So this is all about the conservation reserves and community reserve. Next, I am going to talk about the coastal protected areas. Coastal protected area. The best example is your Gulf of Mannar, which is having high biodiversity, right? So this coastal protected area, they protect the natural marine ecosystem. Marine and the ocean ecosystem, they are going to protect. So this protected area is called as Marine Protected Area, MPA, Marine Protected Area. So what is this Marine Protected Area? There is a definition by IUCN, International Union for Conservation of Nature. They have given a definition of Marine Protected Area. What is a Marine Protected Area? Andre, they are saying it is a intertidal or subtidal region. Intertidal means where the tides are going to come, low tide between the, it is an area demarcated by low tides and high tides. See, let's say the tides are coming, tide and water level rising and falling. So low tide is till here and high tide is till here. So this area becomes a marine protected area, right? It is an intertidal or subtidal terrain with water. It is covered by water. That area should be covered by water. That is the condition. And there should be good amount of flora, fauna present in the region. And it should be culturally important. Culturally important. So, and this area should be reserved by the law. This area should be reserved by the law for protection. That is a marine protected area. Definition by the IUCN. So in India we have Coastal Regulatory Zone, CRZ. So it has many zones. So CRZ1, CRZ2, CRZ3, all these things we will discuss in the further classes, right? So which are the areas suitable for demarcation as marine protected area? Andre, coral reefs. Do coral reefs need protection? Yes, they do need protection. Then you have lagoons. Lagoons need protection. Estuaries need protection. Your mangroves need protection. So these are the areas, marine protected areas. There is lot of fish population. Fauna is high, that is why they need to be protected, right? So marine protected area, there are three categories of marine protected area. The first category is the national parks and wildlife sanctuaries. National parks and wildlife sanctuaries over the marine areas is the first category. So what is this, Andre? So it also says it is a intertidal zone or subtidal zone of marine national park or wildlife sanctuaries. So they are having mangroves. So which are the areas, Andre? Mangrove regions, coral reefs, creeks. Creeks. You have Kori Creek. Where is Kori Creek? It is a disputed land between India and Pakistan in Gujarat, right? That is where the Kori Creek is there. Creeks comes under the category 1 of marine protected area. Then you have category 2 of marine protected area. Category 2, they are islands. They are the islands. So in islands, what are the islands? So islands have both marine and terrestrial regions. So they are the category 2. In category 3, we have two subcategory of marine protected area. So the category 3A are the sandy beaches. Beaches where there is sand. That is a category 3A. Then category 3B is semi-evergreen and evergreen forests around the coastal area. Right? Those are the category 3B of the marine protected area. So in India, how many marine protected areas are there? There are totally 31 marine protected areas. So the best examples are your Gulf of Mannar, Gulf of Kutch, Bhitarkanika, Sundarbans, all these areas, right? So under category 1, so we have under marine protected area, we have 31 marine protected area, but 33 national parks and wildlife sanctuaries who are adjacent to marine areas, adjacent or next to the marine areas. So this is all about the marine protection, marine protected areas. Next, we will move towards a very interesting concept called sacred groves. What is the meaning of sacred groves? I'm going to tell you the nomenclature in Kannada and Tamil. In Kannada, it is called as Devarakadu. In Tamil, it is called as Koil Kadu or something. Right? So, what do you mean by that? Devarakadu. See, these are areas with traditional belief system, tribal belief system. They treat the forest as God. There will be some deity in the forest which is treated as God. So, this is dedicated to local folk deities. Andre, tribal gods. Tribal gods. These forests are dedicated. So, they are going to, some area they are going to not enter, thinking that it is sacred, humans should not enter anta. So, if we do any damage to the sacred groves, the tribals believes that there will be some disease or calamity given by the tribal god, right? So that is the concept. So in some area, in some tribal forest, the dead leaves are collected, at least them. But in some other forest, even the dead leaves are not collected. So the Garo, Jaintia hills, where are they? Meghalaya, they are not going to collect even the dry foliage. So even the Gonds in central India, they also have tribal gods. I mean tribal for this sacred groves, right? So how do we classify the sacred groves in India? We have traditional groves based on the tradition of the tribals, and we have temple groves where there is a temple situated in the forest. Then graves around the burial grounds, Smashana Sutta groves in the forest, they are the three sacred groves. What are the significance? What is the importance of sacred groves? See, sacred groves are good for environmental protection, protecting the environment. The endemic species of plants and animals are protected in the sacred groves, and also in the sacred groves there can be recharge of the aquifer, that is the lakes and the moisture or the rivers get recharged because of good rainfall, right? Good seepage capacity of the land. Then this sacred groves, it is important for conserving the soil. Soil will be protected. But where do you find the sacred groves most? You will find high number of sacred groves in the Western Ghats. Western Ghats. So what is the nomenclature? Nomenclature is asked in your exams. So in Karnataka it is called as Devarakadu. sacred groves in India? So, they have given these places. See, Karnataka, it is called Devarakadu. How many sacred groves are there in Karnataka? 1531. Karnataka has second highest. The highest is in Maharashtra. In Karnataka, it is called Devarakadu. In Andhra Pradesh, it is called as Pavitra Vana. Andhra Pradesh, it is called as Pavitra Vana. Arunachal Pradesh, it is called as Gumpa Forest. It is based on Buddhist belief. Buddhist belief in Goa, the names are very important. Directly they are going to ask this in the exam. Right? Goa, it is called as Diorai or Pan. Jharkhand, they are going to call it as Sarana. Karnataka, Devarakadu. Kerala, it is called as Kavu or Sarakavu. Maharashtra, Devrai, Devrati, Devgudi. Manipur, Gamkap or Mohawk. Meghalaya, Kilo, Lingdho, Kilo, Kingthong or Kilo, Niam. Orissa, Jahera or Takuramma in Orissa. Puducherry, Kovilkadu. Rajasthan, in Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Koilkadu or Swamy Shoal. Rajasthan, it is called as Orans or Jogmaya or Kenkris. Uttarakhand, Diobhumi or Bugyals. Right? West Bengal, Garmatan, Haritan, Jahera, Sabirtan and Santal Buritan. So, these are the names of the sacred groves, right? So, what are the threats to sacred groves? Why they are getting less? What is the threats? You are going to tell me. One is excess exploitation by the human beings of the forest. Second is these Devarakadu sacred concepts nobody is believing. No, they think it is superstition. That is the second thing. Third is urbanization. Fourth is Sanskritization. Sanskritization andre, what do you mean by Sanskritization? Teaching people Sanskrit. So, teaching people the normal religion, that is, see, these tribals have their own religion, own religious system, but bringing them in the Hinduism fold is called as Sanskritization. Once they are bought into the Hinduism fold, what happens? Their own belief system is destroyed, right? They start following or doing puja like us, normal people, normal Hindus, right? Sanskritization is a threat. And one more threat is exotic weeds. That is the invasive species, Prospois, Julifera, all those things. Then one more threat is livestock, that is grazing or collecting fuel wood is also threat, right? So this is all about the sacred groves. Now we will talk about the plants and animals which are export prohibited, which are prohibited from exporting. So in order to export a plant or animal in India, you require a license. So which international law governs the transport of animals and plants? It is CITES, CITES. I'm going to discuss it in the further classes. CITES convention is going to convention on international transport or international trade in endangered species. That convention is going to govern the international transport. So in India you need a license. So what are prohibited? All wild animals and plants. All wild animals and plants and their derivatives, that is products made out of them, are prohibited from export unless you have a export license. So what are the products? Your peacock tail, Navilin Pukar, that is prohibited. Then cheetal and sambardu, this thing, horns of the cheetal and sambar. Then seashells are prohibited. Seashells, shanka, they don't sell it actually. They are sold illegally. Those are prohibited. Sandalwood, red sanders, all those things are prohibited. Some laws even prohibit the export of beef, buffalo and beef meat. Some laws even prohibit the transport or export of the wood, normal wood, right? So this is all about the export, this thing. So basic, you know what are all prohibited, and sites is very, very important. I'm going to discuss it in the further classes. Next, global initiatives for protecting the biosphere or protecting the flora and fauna. What is the initiative? I have discussed it in geography. We have the Man and Biosphere Program. By whom? UNESCO. UNESCO has this Man and Biosphere Program, very, very important program. So, it was started somewhere in around in 1970s, around 1976. So, they aim at coexistence. Andre, environment should also be protected, economy should also be developed, human should also grow. So, that is co-development. It has a scientific model of co-development. Everything should be balanced. The economic growth, human development and environmental protection, everything should be balanced is the concept of the Man and Biosphere Program. So, they aim to protect the economy, society, ecology and culture, all these areas. So, Man and Biosphere andre, it doesn't focus only on the environment. It focuses on the entire thing. Economy, ecology, society as well as the cultural protection. Today we are facing lot of biodiversity loss, right? Because of the anthropogenic causes. So it aims to safeguard the natural ecosystem. So which is the governing, who governs the Man and Biosphere Program? Under UNESCO you have International Coordination Council. International Coordination Council, it is the governing body of the Man and Biosphere Program, right? So, with respect to Man and Biosphere Program, we have World Network of Biosphere Reserves. I have told you the 12 reserves. There are 12 reserves in India recognized by Man and Biosphere Program, that I discussed it in the geography section. So I am not going. Totally 18 biosphere reserves are there, out of which 12 are recognized by the MAP program, UNESCO MAP program, right? So they focus on this World Network of Biosphere Reserves. They focus on knowledge dissemination, increasing awareness, and also conducting research, increasing education about the biosphere, all these things. And also they work towards sustainable development. Also they protect the, they predict the dangers of the, just like the IPCC. What is IPCC? International Panel on Climate, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. This IPCC gives report. Timely they give many reports, right? Those reports are very, very important. Assessment report, right? Just like that, they also predict the danger of loss of biodiversity, right? So, under biodiversity, this MAP program, we have Biosphere Reserves. So, this Biosphere Reserves, this concept came in 1971. It came in 1971. And the Biosphere Network was formed in 1976. World Network of Biosphere Reserves were formed in 1976. Very, very important. So, what is the definition of Biosphere Reserves? How does the UNESCO defines the Biosphere Reserve? UNESCO says that. What is the full form of UNESCO? United Nations Education, Scientific and Cultural Organization. UNICEF, United Nations Children Fund. Right? So UNESCO says that Biosphere Reserve is a representative of, it is a place which it is a representative of natural and cultural landscape. It represents both natural landscape as well as the cultural landscape over both terrestrial and marine ecosystem. Simple definition. Land ಮತ್ತೆ ocean ಮೇಲೆ natural and cultural landscape. The landscape which is important naturally and culturally, those are called as the Biosphere Reserve. So what does this Biosphere Reserve aim at? They aim at coexistence of humans as well as nature. They aim at respecting the nature. They focus on sustainable development. They also are dependent on local community effort for the protection of biosphere reserves. Local community effort is respected. So what are the characteristics of biosphere reserves? So biosphere reserves includes the protected area, that is national parks, wildlife sanctuaries, reserve forest, community reserves, and what is the one more thing? Conservation reserves. All these things can be included within the biosphere reserves, and people are integral part of the biosphere reserve. People are the important part, right? So these biosphere reserves, it is an international community. There is an international understanding among the countries for exchange of information with respect to biosphere reserves. They aim at protecting the natural biome. I already told you what is a biome. It is a boundary of existence of a variety of plant and animal within specific climatic condition, right? So it protects the natural biome. So when there is biosphere resource, the biodiversity increases. Biodiversity of the place increases, and it aims at research, training, so you need research, right? How to protect the species, research, and also training should be carried out. Training of whom? Training of the forest guards, training of the forest service people. They should be trained, and scientists should be trained. So that is also aim, and also sustainable use of the forest. And we need forest, right? Forest, bamboo, wood, everything we need. How do we use it sustainably? And the sustainable use, and we are using it now so that it is not getting destroyed. We use it sustainably so that it doesn't get destroyed for the future generations. So when it comes to biosphere reserves, there are three functions I discussed under the geography also. The first function is conservation. Conservation of what? Conservation of plants and animals. Conservation of species. Conservation of genes. Conservation of the population, right? So second is development. Development of social, cultural, economic, all those development. Third is logistic support. Logistic support, that is research, training, education, all those things. So biosphere reserves, and they have shown the diagram also in geography. It is three things: conservation, development, and logistic support are the three functions, right? So in India biosphere reserves, I've already told you, 18 of them are there, 12 are demarcated by UNESCO. So we have a aim towards having one biosphere reserves in every biogeographic province. Every biogeographic province, we need one biosphere reserves. How many biogeographic provinces we have? 25 biogeographic province. So with respect to biosphere protection, we have one program called National Biosphere Reserve Program. When was this program started? National Biosphere Reserve Program, it was started in 1986. So we have a National Biodiversity Act. When was the National Biodiversity Act enacted in India? Okay, tell me, when was the Convention on Biodiversity by United Nations? CBD, discussed in earlier class also. Hmm? Convention of Biodiversity was in 1992. National Biodiversity Act was in 2002, and that is National Biosphere Reserve Program was there in 1986. The years are important, right? So this National Biosphere Reserve Program, it aims to have local participation in the biosphere protection. Andre tribal and village people, it aims to participate them in protection of the biosphere reserves. It also aims to enhance the livelihood and the job opportunities. Does forest provide job opportunities? Yes, it does. It has got lot of products: honey, bamboo, wood, paper, all those things. And also soil conservation, so many things are there. Aquifer recharge, all those things, right? So objectives, what are the objectives of biosphere reserves? So one is to increase the diversity, increase the biological diversity, then aim at sustainable use of the forest, then increase the social, economic and cultural integration of the people with the environment. Environmental integration with the people. All these things are the aims of the biosphere reserves, right? So what is the criteria of selection? Biosphere reserve, if we are selecting, what is the criteria? See, there are two types of criteria. First is the primary criteria and secondary criteria. So when you have biosphere reserve, you must know this diagram. So this area is called as core area. This is core area. This is buffer area. This is transition area. So core area, so it should be core area. Primary criteria should be, it should be very highly protected, no human intervention, and there should be minimum disturbance in the core area. There should be no disturbance at all in the core area, and you can just allow research in their area, these areas. No, nothing apart from research, right? So this core area, how do you demarcate it? Andre, it should be a biogeographical unit. Andre, combination of biology and geography. It should be a large biogeographic area where there is presence of all trophic levels. Trophic levels means what? From producer to the end consumer, detrivorous, right, from grassland. So all trophic levels should be present. So that is the criteria for demarcating the core area. Then secondary criteria. What is the secondary criteria for demarcating the biosphere reserves? They should be rare and endangered species. There should be presence of rare and endangered species, right? There should be diversity of rare and endangered species, Andreno, which are on the verge of extinction, and they should be rare, very rare, right? So there should be diversity of the soil within the area. Soil diversity should be there. Climatic diversity should be there, and there should be indigenous biota. Indigenous biota andre local biota should be there. Andre local biota andre plants and animals. Local biota should be there, and also the secondary criteria. One more criteria is there. There should be traditional mode of living. Andre tribal living should be there. Andre traditional and rural mode of living, not urban living. Andre see, this rural living or traditional mode of living is generally considered as environmental friendly. That kind of living should be there in this area. That is the secondary criteria, and that kind of living should be protected, right? So that is the thing. So what is the structure or design of the biosphere reserves? Andre one is the core area, second is the buffer area, and third is the transition area. So core area, it is undisturbed, and it has sustainable habitat. Andre it is a home for many types of species, and it is got lot of endemism. Endemism andre Native species, species which are not found anywhere else, species which are local to this place, that endemism is found, and this area is highly legally protected. So you cannot enter that area, only research is allowed in this area, and there is very less human pressure on this area. Then you have the buffer area. In buffer area, why do the buffer andrenu? It acts as a cushion. So this buffer area is demarcated to protect the core area, right? It aims to restore the core area. Core area there some damage is there. Buffer area will pitch in. It is just like a night watchman in cricket. Some main players will fall. Some night watchman or some not so significant batsman is going to play. Just like that. Buffer area is aims at restoration of the core area. So here some activities are allowed. So limited recreation. Recreation andre tourism, fishing, little bit of agriculture. Limited level it is allowed. So why it is allowed andre? See, if you don't allow limited recreation here, people will go and celebrate here. So here limited recreation is allowed, right? Then you have transition area. Transition area andre no. See, here there is a city. Here you have Biosphere Reserve. So this is a this transpires from the city to Biosphere Reserves. It is just like what? Ecotone between two ecosystems, right? So it is a transition zone between the outer human urban area and the Biosphere Reserve. So it is a zone of cooperation between humans and environment. Here you can have your houses can be built here, crop can be grown there, and tourism resorts, everything is permitted there, right? So what is the relationship of biosphere reserves and protected areas? See, this biosphere reserves can include the national parks as well as wildlife sanctuary. It enhances the protected area. Andre protected area, if it is there, that protection is increased if it is made a biosphere reserves, right? So what is the difference between protected area and biosphere reserves? Andre, in biosphere reserves, we are aiming at conserving the entire biodiversity, right, in the biosphere reserve. Whereas national parks and wildlife sanctuary, national park, only all the species, right? Whereas not atmosphere and all is not concerned in national park. But biosphere reserve, even the atmosphere is protected, right? Even the water is protected. National park, only plants and animals. Wildlife sanctuary, only specific species, tigers, lions, like that. So that is the thing. And in biosphere reserves, it aims towards sustainable development. That is not the goal of protected areas, that is national parks and wildlife sanctuaries. Then here they involve local people and organizations in the protection. There people and organizations are not involved in protected areas. Here research is involved, their research is very minimally allowed, right? So in India you have India National Man and Biosphere Committee. Indian National Man and Biosphere Committee is there. That is the coordinating agency in India. It does all the work. Indian National Man and Biosphere Committee, with respect to UNESCO map, we have a committee, right? So this Biosphere Reserves, who is responsible, state or center? It is a state government which is responsible, just like other protected areas, but the central government plays a supporting role. It acts as a supporting role, right? So next we have this concept of World Network of Biosphere Reserves. World Network of Biosphere Reserves, I told you we have a International Coordinating Council. It is the governing council of the Man and Biosphere Program. So how do they designate the Biosphere Reserves? Individual countries are going to request them, please designate this area as a Biosphere Reserves, right? So if there is any violation, if you carry out hunting, if you harm the environment in the Biosphere Reserves, then that area will be delisted, right, that will be removed from the biosphere reserves. In the world, we have 610 biosphere reserves in the world totally, right, in 117 countries, totally 610 biosphere reserves. So totally 610 biosphere reserves are there, right? There is so we will so this is all about the biosphere reserves. Next we will talk about the important concept, biodiversity hotspots. What is biodiversity hotspot? Where there is high number of species, endemic species, that is the biodiversity hotspot. This concept was given by one person called Norman Mayers, Normanmeers. Norman Mayers gives this concept of biodiversity hotspot in 1988. He is going to give this concept. Two criteria are there to determine the biodiversity hotspot. What are the two criteria and other things with respect to biodiversity hotspot? I am going to discuss it tomorrow. Today, let me end the class because I know you are also tired sitting for 2 hours. So, we'll continue with biodiversity hotspots tomorrow. So, if you have any doubts, further queries, any feedback, guidance regarding the guidance, and also need of any change with respect to the quality of the classes, please reach out on the VHS Education Forum Telegram channel. Also put your doubts in the comment section or also on our VHS Education Forum. We will be happy to help you. So please make good use of the classes, both veterans and freshers. It is useful for both, and please take good care of your health. We will meet again in the next class. Until then, take care. Jai Hind. Namaste.